Welcome to the Growth Guide podcast. I'm your host, Clint Murphy. Every week, I talk to authors, subject matter experts, and millionaire mentors to share the lessons that will help you and me be better, achieve more, and become financially free. Today, I had a wonderful conversation with Daniel Priestley, an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and international speaker. Daniel has worked with some of the world's most successful people and has built his own successful multi-million-dollar businesses. We talk about his book, Oversubscribed, how to get people lining up to do business with you. And Daniel shares proven, real-world methods that will help you drive demand for your products or services and dramatically increase the success of your business. Enjoy the conversation. Good morning, Daniel. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about your book, Oversubscribed. Before we begin, though, can you give our listeners a brief bio on who you are, and then we'll dive right into the book?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. I love the previous guests that you've had, and it's really wonderful to be joining a great group of people. I've been an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. I was born and raised in Australia, and I kind of had this experience as a teenager where I got to work at McDonald's and meet my McDonald's owner and read a book called The E-Myth, and suddenly I thought to myself, that's what I want to do. I want to be a business owner. I want to be an entrepreneur. So I just, through a series of events, had this excitement to be in business. And that's what I kind of knew from a young age I always wanted to do. At 19, I joined a startup and I was employee number 3, and we didn't have a bank account or a business name. And we went really fast growth, 6 million in the first year, 60 employees in the first year. And I got to be very, very close with the founder in building that. So I had this amazing experience of being able to ride shotgun in a fast growth business from 19 to 20. At 21, I went to the founder and said, can I get shares in the company? And he said, you can have shares in your own company if you go start your own company, but you're not having shares in mine. And I did. I went off and started my own business. And that was my first company at age 21. And it took off really fast. So we did about 1.3 million in year 1, 10.7 million in year 3. So I was 23, 24 years old, and we were doing $1 million a month of sales. And then I grew and expanded it, moved from Australia into London, built a global business with offices around the world. We had offices in 8 cities around the world at one point. Pre-pandemic, we're now consolidated to 3 time zones with offices in London, Sydney, and Toronto. And today I buy and sell companies. So I've bought 8 companies in the group. I've written a bunch of books about my entrepreneurial journey. I've started different companies. I'm a co-founder of a business called ScoreApp, where we created some technology that's very fast growth tech. It's become a valuable company in its first couple of years. And, had some fun stuff. I've won Entrepreneur of the Year in the UK. So, books, businesses, all that sort of stuff. And I'm a dad. I've got 3 little kids, 4, 5, and 8.
4, 5, and 8. So do you want them to have that same experience working at McDonald's that you had? And I ask that because I also am a McDonald's alumni, and I don't know if you can remember back to your days working there, but the speed, the intensity, the buzzers and the bells going off everywhere, the stress. And I've often found that if you can excel in the McDonald's restaurant, you ought to be able to excel in just about any job you get thrown at.
Yeah, I think that too. A lot of people who I've worked with in the past, and a lot of entrepreneurs have had that McDonald's background. And when you say, can you remember? I remember very clearly. I remember day 1 getting taught how to sneeze. I don't know if they taught you the system for sneezing, but we got taught the system on how to sneeze on day 1. I still remember things like that there are 53 nuggets in the bag, and the toasters are at 215 degrees Celsius and 188 and 166 degrees on the platinum grills. I still remember, 10-minute timer behind the Big Macs, the 6 steps of customer service, like all of that stuff was just drilled. And then 25 years later, it's still in my head. I can tell you the 6 steps of service that we got taught on the front counter off the top of my head, weirdly.
See, I never got to the front counter.
You're in the back.
I was the grill boy, yeah. So for me, it was more, if there's time to lean, there's time to clean, and just mopping the heck out of the place.
Lay 6 for eggs.
Like the ability to have 6 eggs in my hands and cracking them at the same time. Like I can't do that as an adult.
No, I can do that now. From McDonald's, I still crack eggs one-handed. So I'm still, when I'm making eggs now, I'm just bashing out eggs with one hand. I can crack and put an egg down in a nice little circle because I did so many of them as McDonald's. So do I want my kids to have that? Yeah, look, I'm not against that. There were some things that I was against. Looking back now, they were never particularly helpful when it came to us overeating on McDonald's, right? So I was working 4 shifts a week and they just let us eat as much of that stuff as we wanted. And once the store closed, we could pile it all onto the kitchen bench and eat everything that was in the waste. Like at the end of close time, whatever was not eaten, you could eat. And that stuff, I think, was pretty wildly irresponsible. I had incredible acne as a teenager. And looking back at it now, I don't think this was a big mystery as to why I was getting this acne. I was smashing out McDonald's 4 nights a week.
Yeah, you started to smell, look, feel like...
Oh, yeah, covered in grease.
Like it oozed out of your pores, 100%. Yeah. Oh, the memories. So let's shift gears to your book. And where I'd love to start with you is to work through some of the principles that you talk about. And the first one that jumped out at me, you said, only oversubscribed businesses make a profit. And in this section, you talked about the idea that we only need 2 bidders. And it raised the idea for me. And then interestingly, what it brought out in my head was if I'm a coach, one of the ways that I can increase my revenue is to be confident in myself, restrict my boundaries, and limit the number of spots I had. And then later you brought out Rich Litvin, who's someone who I monitor closely with the intention that when I pivot from working full-time to being an entrepreneur, that I would seek out and work with Rich.
So I was Rich's business coach for a while.
Yeah. So can you take people through how Rich...
The coach's coach.
Yeah. How does he use the boundaries to increase the value and really his overall revenue?
Let me say that I wouldn't talk about one of my clients without their permission first. But let's just talk in general, right? And maybe some of this will be similar to what someone like Rich might do. But let's say this. Let's say you're a coach and you say, I've got 8 clients. That's it. And I'm only going to have 8 clients. And I'm going to charge 80 grand a client. That's my model. So I'm going to make 640,000 per year and 8 clients who pay 80 grand a year. That would be a really great starting point because then you know that realistically you become oversubscribed as soon as you've got 9 who want that, right? And of course, if you can get 30 or 40 who want that, now you're in a position where well and truly oversubscribed. You're oversubscribed with a waiting list. If you've got, 16, 20, 30 clients who would say, yeah, in theory, I'd like to do that, whether it's now or in the future at some point, you're now pretty oversubscribed. What most coaches do is they don't start with that. They start with, how much do I earn per hour and how many hours can I sell as much as I possibly can? And they don't ever create any game or dynamic. So publicly declaring, I can only take on 8 clients at any given time and I'm 80,000 per year. That's the start of the game. And that means the gauntlet is down. So now you can begin the process of being oversubscribed. If you want to run a group, because Rich, for example, has an amazing group called 4PC, which we worked on creating together, and it's the top 4%, and it's only for 40, right? So it's a group of 40 people, and it's got a waiting list. It's got a long waiting list now. So it's a really well thought through group, and he built it for 40 people. He got people to signal that they were interested. And I think he probably had something like 80 to 100 people signal. And then he selected the 40 that he wanted to put in it. And now it's 1 in, 1 out. People don't leave because it's hard to get back in if you leave. So that is an example of being oversubscribed. Just to highlight the idea that only oversubscribed businesses are profitable, is if you take extreme examples, like an airline, you think if a business should be profitable because it's fair that it would profitable, an airline would certainly be a good contender. It is only fair that if you are flying planes through the air and you have to have 100% safety record and that you have to have massive capital investment and you have to deliver hot chicken curry perfectly at 30,000 feet every single time with a nice glass of wine, and you have to take off and land it within a few minutes of a landing slot. If you've got to do all of those things or else people hate you, right? You got to do it all perfectly. You would say it's only fair that you get seriously rewarded for being able to achieve that. But airlines aren't that profitable. They're like 4 or 5% profit margins at best. And especially if you look at how much debt they're carrying and all this sort of stuff, they're just not profit engines. They have other things like their point systems that are the thing that keep them afloat, but they're not very profitable. If you take something that's ridiculous, like a Rolex watch that you can copy pretty convincingly for 1/20th of the price, it's made with just pretty standard materials. It's a stainless steel watch. It hasn't really innovated in 50 years. A Rolex Submariner is the same as a Rolex Submariner in 1970. So all of these things about Rolex would indicate that they shouldn't be profitable, and they're wildly profitable, right? They're a massively profitable company. And really, if you want a Rolex, try and get one, right? Try and get a Rolex. If you want to buy one retail, it's 18 months to 24 months waiting list. If you want to buy one now, you're going to have to pay a premium from a second-hand place. You're going to pay 20, 30, 40% above retail for second-hand. So the only real thing here is that one business, which should be profitable, isn't, because it's very much commoditized and there's no waiting list. It's not oversubscribed. You want to fly, you can fly. The other business shouldn't be profitable, but it's oversubscribed. It's very difficult to get one. It's demand and supply. It's the first lesson you learn in economics is demand and supply sets the price. And when things are in excess demand, then you get profit.
And so that's really what we're looking at is commoditization versus a valuable company, and using principles to move the supply-demand curve in a way that we have higher demand than we do supply, which is the definition then of oversubscribed.
Being oversubscribed is where demand outstrips supply. And most coaches make a huge mistake, which is that they try and increase supply rather than restrict supply. So, for example, you'll see a coach who's going through the process of putting all their content online, or they're creating an online course. You sit there and go, but wait a second, an online course is an infinite supply of that product. So it's going to drive to zero. You're going to launch the course, and as soon as you launch it, it's going to track down to zero.
And it's going to track down to zero because now you're competing with all other online courses and there's infinite of them out there, or what's our rationale?
It's going to track to zero because when supply is unlimited and demand is limited in some way, if supply is infinite and demand is anything less than infinite, the price goes to zero eventually. Look at Google Maps. Google Maps requires $1 billion worth of satellites flying around in the sky and the world's best engineers keeping it up and running. And it's free because they can do an infinite amount of it. What is the one thing Google can charge for? The top 3 spots on a search. If they can charge for the top 3 spots on a search, that is a finite number of things. So therefore, those can be oversubscribed, but everything else is infinite. So therefore, it tracks to zero. And Google accepts this, and they make stuff free because of that. They understand demand and supply economics.
And so what jumps out at me, and I can use some of the stuff that we're doing as I grow my side businesses, Daniel, is with a group of friends, as an example, we've launched a cohort course. And one of the mistakes I now realize we made was we didn't indicate that there was a limited number of spots. And so there was never that urgency that someone needed one of those spots. So there will be close to 100 people that end up in there, but the amount of hustle that had to happen to bring them in and price discounting or offers, etc., it effectively, in time value of money for me personally, started to track to zero, to your point. And the number one thing I said to my two partners was, next time we need to have a number in our mind that we can get, that's an easy get if we launch again. And we need to put the number below that and say, this is the limited spots. P.S. We've already signed up this many people.
Well, here's what I would do. Slightly different. Very close, slightly different. I would say we're launching this program. It's going to have 100 slots. If you'd like to apply for a spot and if you'd like the information, fill in this application form. We'll send you out all the information as it becomes available. I would personally work real hard to get about 500 people to signal their intent that they want to be on the program and that they're interested. So that gives me two authentic and real numbers to be able to talk about with people. And I can say, Clint, we've got 100 people who are part of this cohort, and we've got over 500 who have signaled their intention to join. Would you like to be one of the people who goes ahead? Because we're going to create an opportunity for you to join next week. Just letting you know, it will be the first. We're going to go back to the 500, and you've been pre-selected. We've screened away about 150, but now we're going to get first 100 can come through. So that creates a moment of like, oh, okay, there's no negotiating on price here, and there's no negotiating on time. I don't do it on my time, and I don't do it at my price. I either do it or I don't do it, but it's going to fill up.
So what you were talking about there, we're sending out the signal and signals coming back. Can you bring people up to speed on what the signal out and signal in is? Because that's a very powerful piece for them to grasp.
Yeah, so one of the chapters in the book is First Signals, Then Sales. And it basically talks about this idea that you don't sell anything until you've got signaled interest first. So let's use some examples that are in the public domain, like Tesla's Cybertruck. So Elon Musk gets up on stage and says, in 3 years' time, we're going to have a Cybertruck factory. We're going to launch this crazy looking Cybertruck that's here behind me. If you would like a Cybertruck, you need to pre-register for one, and you need to put down a $100 deposit. So that is a signaled interest with a small barrier. 1 million people put down a $100 deposit, and he was able to then go to, I think it was JP Morgan, and he was able to say, we now have 1 million pre-orders, $100 deposits for this truck that's coming 3 years from now. We're going to need about 200 million worth of funding to build the factory. Can we get 200 million worth of funding to build a factory? And JP Morgan says, well, of course you can, because if even a fraction of those people fulfill their orders, that's going to be a great business. So imagine trying to do it the other way around. Imagine he goes to JP Morgan in secret and says, hey, check out what I came up with. And they go, that looks like a teenager's wet dream of a car. That's ridiculous. No one's going to buy that. And he says, yeah, but what if we build it and then we'll try and sell them? And they're sitting there going, no, we're not going to take a risk like that. So by getting signals first from market, and then he can get the funding and ultimately make the sales, that's the correct way to go about it. Same sort of thing. If I'm a coach, let's bring it right down to the ground from Elon Musk to being a coach. If I'm a coach and I've got, let's say let's say me personally, I'm going to launch myself as a coach. I'm going to say, guys, I've just sold my companies. I'm now going to take on 8 coaching clients. I'm not going to kick this off until June, July. I'd just like to get some applications as to who would like to be coached by me and what you'd like to get out of coaching. So then I'm going to spend probably 4 or 5 months just signal collecting. And I'm going to run around, I'm going to speak at events, I'm going to network. And all I'm going to ask people to do is fill in a form and tell me a bit about themselves, what problems they're wanting to solve through coaching. And I'm just going to say, I can't start until June, July for my own personal reasons, but signal collection, if you're interested, let me know. And also, what's that result worth to you? So, okay, I hear that you want to reinvent your company culture and you want to put together a leadership retreat and you want to do these sorts of things. Okay, great. What sort of budget did you have in mind? What do you think that's worth to you if you get that right? Okay, great. So you think that's worth 30 grand. Fantastic. So I'm going to get a whole bunch of signals, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to review my signals. I'm going to call people back and say, look, good news and bad news. The good news is I've got 8 coaching spots available now. I'm going to get started. Bad news is I've been out there talking to people and I've got 118 people who want to be coached by me. So I just want to double check. Would you be interested in going ahead, or do you want me to take you off the list? And then in which case people are like, yeah, actually take me off the list. I'm not going to compete with 117 others. And someone else is going to say, actually, yeah, I definitely want to be on the list. I say, cool. So you mentioned in your form that the result you're looking for is 40,000. Are you happy to go ahead on that basis? It looks like it's about a 6-month engagement. We can do the leadership retreat. We can do this. We can do that. All the things that you're wanting to do, we can work on all of that in the first 6 months. If we work on that and we achieve all of that, would you be happy with the 40,000 that you mentioned? Yeah, sure. Great. I'll put you down. Let's do it. So now I'm not haggling with the market. They're haggling with me as to can they be one of my 8 coaching clients.
So when we look at that too, because what jumps out at me as I read and listen to that is so many of us are still trapped in the traditional model of, and you used Elon as an example, I need to have an idea, build the product, then I market it, then I try to sell it. And you're saying, well, wait, have the idea,
signal collect,
market it,
collect signals,
collect the signals, reach out to the signals,
build demand and supply tension. So once you start the signaling process, you need to actually have transparency of demand and supply tension. So the demand and supply tension is where there's some form of transparency around the fact that someone's going to miss out. If I drive past my favorite restaurant and there's 5 or 6 people standing in a line out the front of the door, I know that if I stop and go into that restaurant, I'm going to have to wait for 15, 20 minutes to get through the line. And it's like, oh, wow, okay, like they're busy. So there's no haggling on price. There's no, I either accept those terms or not, right? So there's that transparency of demand and supply tension. If I go onto a website and it says our system's overloaded at the moment. So for example, ChatGPT is right now the hottest thing on the internet. And half the time that you use it, it won't let you in. It actually says, sorry, our systems are overloaded right now. We'll put in your email address. We'll let you know when we've got room for you to come and use the ChatGPT. So it's all of this, like it's constantly breaking down and it's in demand. And there's a orange banner that pops up that says, sorry, our systems are getting smoked at the moment. And you're sitting there going, oh, and then when they come along and they say, guys, you can not have any of that for $45 a month. You can have priority access to ChatGPT. Everyone's going to jump at it. Millions of people are going to sign up in week 1 because they don't want to be in the queue. They don't want to be locked out of it. They don't want the uncertainty of knowing whether they have access or not. So they're building demand and transparency of demand and supply tensions actually building right now because people are going, oh, they're so busy that I can't even get in. You've got to go through this process of building demand and supply tension.
When I was reading through demand and supply tension, one of the things that raised in my mind was these sites that try to do it and it's manufactured, Daniel, only 8 spots left, only 12-hour. Are they attempting to create the supply-demand tension? And is it actually there, or does that for you and me who know, well, wait a second, every time I've gone to your website, it's told me only 8 left, and I've been here 20 times. So when they're using that as a gimmick and it's not true, does that dilute it?
The truth is that demand and supply tension has to be real, and you can manufacture it. You can actually manufacture, like when we use that word manufacturing demand and supply tension, to me, that word means that you've successfully manufactured demand and supply tension, as in there is demand and supply tension. And when it's real, it works. And when it's not real, it doesn't work. So, for example, the highest paid coaches that I know of, they typically, at some points throughout the year, stand on stages in front of hundreds of people. And hundreds of people see them talking about whatever it is they're talking about. If it's Simon Sinek, it's like, yeah, look, start with why. And if he was standing in front of you, just you personally saying start with why, you'd be like, okay, it's not a bad idea. But if you're at a TED conference and there's thousands of people in the audience and it's a big stage and he's just been introduced as like a legend and he says, you got to start with why, then suddenly you're like, oh man, I got to get this guy into my company and, that's a big deal. So essentially there's this genuine demand and supply tension that has happened because you look around and you can see there are other people in the room. Now, when you go to a website and it says there's only 8 left, and you know that there's not, what you're actually suspecting is that it's artificial or synthetic and it's being used as a ploy or a gimmick. There are other websites you go to and you absolutely know that there are only 3 in stock. It says there's only 3 in stock and there are 17 people on the page right now buying. And you're like, oh, I better get that. And then sometimes you miss out and you're like, oh, damn it. So like this guitar that I wanted to buy, I had to buy that from Germany. I tried buying it on 3 or 4 different websites in the UK. And just as I would get to the checkout, they're like, sorry, it's out of stock. I'm like, I'm trying to buy this damn guitar. And I end up having to ship it in from Germany to get it, right? So it was a particular one that I want. You know, same thing with the Rolex. You go on the waiting list and you wait 18 months and you ring them up and say, hey, any news on my Rolex? And they're like, yeah, sorry, you're still on the list, but we can't really update you. Sorry, I'm busy, bye. And then one day they give you the call and they say, hey, look, we've got that Rolex that you want. We can hold it here for you for 3 days, but if you can't collect it in 3 days with someone else, and you go back on the waiting list. And you're like, no, don't let that go. I will be down there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the key is that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to manufacture that demand supply genuine tension. And for me, one of the things, the whole time I was reading, I was messaging my partners and firing, hey guys, next time we got to think of this. We got to do this. And even just friends who have businesses or are creators. And one of the ones that really jumped out at me was the idea, I said, I need to start 7-Eleven foring people. So give you a little longer question on this one. But so this is when it comes to building bonds, you talk about the 3 ingredients our brains use to make connections: time, interactions, locations. So when I read that, I saw the power of being on multiple social media platforms, having a podcast, having a newsletter, all being locations, time to consume, and that when I eventually get to selling products and coaching offers, which still probably a couple years away, maybe 5, depending on who's listening to the podcast, date to be determined down the road. So when I think of that, for me, it's like, okay, I need to use 7-Eleven to become a star, not with everybody, but with enough people that there's a demand-supply tension for whatever it is I bring down the road.
Okay, so this is slightly different to demand and supply tension. So demand and supply tension is the volume of people who want to buy versus the capacity. What we're now talking about is the opposite of competition is connection, right? So if I have a high degree of connection, then there is no competition. If there's low degree of connection, then there's competition. So for example, who's in competition with my kids in terms of could a better kid come along and dislodge my kids from being my kids and say, like it depends on what day, right? I get it. But it depends, like if I've got an 8-year-old, which I do, and he's annoying at times, of course, every 8-year-old is. But if I found a better 8-year-old, like who is less annoying, and I went, actually, this supplier of being an 8-year-old is better than this current 8-year-old that I have as my kid, it's not like I'm going to switch them out, right? So it's like because of the connection that I have with my kids, they're my kids, there is no competition. They are not in competition with anybody. So that's an extreme example. But if I have a connection to a brand, like it's irrational. So for example, using the guitar again, if I know that from a teenager, I want to have a certain Fender Stratocaster, and I've got reasons why I want a Fender Stratocaster, and my heroes have got Fender Stratocasters, and the Fender Stratocaster it's got particular connection for me, then there is no competition. I'm not easily persuaded to have a different guitar that looks just the same. Even if someone says, hey, look, this is a Yamaha and it looks exactly the same as the Fender Stratocaster, no one will know. I'm like, I will know, right? I'm not interested in a different one. So this is the thing with connection. So when we want to eliminate competition, we need to increase the level of connection. And the way that we the minimum standard for someone feeling a sense of connection is 7-11-4. So when people have gone through 7 hours, 11 interactions, and 4 locations with you, there's a minimum level of connection that's been forged, and that competition starts to melt away. There is no competition at that point, or there's less perceived competition, but that competition would have to have done a lot of 7-11-4ing themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean, what I'm saying though, is it doesn't necessarily mean that you have demand and supply tension. There are people who have amazing connected followings, but then they go and launch some free course online or some course online, and there's no demand and supply tension, and therefore, like, it doesn't make a lot of money.
So that's the disconnect right there. We want to build those connections. We use the 7-11-4 techniques. And if we're doing it right and we have that connection, when we do go to signal, should we get a stronger supply from that group because of that connection?
Yeah, so when you described a scenario before of suspecting that it was bullshit, and you thought, hey, I'm at this website, I don't believe that they're actually oversubscribed. That to me would be where you sit there and go, hey, wait a second, I don't trust, right? I don't have a high degree of trust that this is real. Now, if this was one of the heroes that you've been following for years and that you've read their book and listened to their stuff and you've seen them speak live, if they told you there's only 8 spots available and take it or leave it, and you have a high degree of trust with them and a high degree of connection, then you'll say, yeah, like I totally buy into the fact that that's probably true and it's worth it. So you're going to go in and say, yeah, I'm all up for that. So this is where your words have power, because you've got the trust, you've got the connection with people. So when we talk about, for example, being oversubscribed and then asking people, would you like to go ahead? One of the things I like to do between the point of signaled interest and asking for the sale is to build that connection and build that trust. So let's go back to, I know we're jumping around a bit, but let's go back to the Cybertruck example. Let's say I put down $100 deposit for my Cybertruck, but it's 3 years into the future and I need $60,000 to buy the Cybertruck. So I've got a gap of 3 years and $60,000 to fill. If they're super smart, what they will do is they will just heighten your desire and heighten your desire. They'll send you videos of Cybertruck. They'll send you people, the engineers describing the Cybertruck. They're going to allow you to have exclusive content. They're going to give you some blogs. They're going to give you some data and some reports. They're going to take you on a visual factory tour of them building the Cybertruck. They're going to give you all these updates. And because they 7-11 for you in between, now you're sitting there going, of course I'm going to buy this damn thing. I don't want to miss out. But if they just simply 3 years into the future say, oh, by the way, you put down $100 deposit, time to pay another $59,900. It's like, oh, do I really want it? I was excited at the time, but maybe not. So there's no connection to it anymore.
In one of the ways they can 7-11 for you, as you were describing it, I'm picturing there can be emails, there can be, because of your deposit, you have access to an online virtual event, new location, event, medium, location, time together. And the more they do that, if they can build that bond, maybe as we get there, now I really want that, hey, let's do a second deposit. Let's get some more momentum and get you hooked in a little more.
Yep, exactly. And if you want someone really hooked in, you could take it away from them. You could say, we actually have too many people who want the Cybertruck. There's no way we can fulfill the orders. We'd like to refund you your $100 deposit. Please click here for your refund. It's like, no, piss off. I don't want my refund. I want the truck, right? And then as soon as they go, oh, all right, well, we'll keep you on the list. Now you're definitely on the list. So at that point, you can actually create a hook moment of anti-sell. Take it away.
Hook moment of anti-sell. Oh, I love this.
You'll only be able to do that if it's genuine, by the way. So like I've done several of these. Like, for example, I had a big conference and we had 700 tickets, but we had about 1,100 people. So we got to 700 paid tickets. We then took it up to probably, I think it was just under 900 who had paid for a ticket. And then we started the waiting list and we ended up with about 1,100 in total. So we had like 900 who had paid. So then we just emailed everyone and said, we've sold too many tickets. Can we please buy back your ticket for twice what you paid? So you paid 39. We'll give you double that if you'll just give it back to us. If there's any reason why you're not going to turn up, can you please just tell us now so that we can take the ticket back, pay you double, and give it to someone on the waiting list? And we had people like ferociously, no way, man. This is my ticket. I booked early. I'm not selling my ticket, and I don't want your offer of double. Only it's very small. Like 50 people took us up on that offer. Out of 900. So it was like pretty wild. Like people don't like missing out on something that's happening.
Because you're doing a couple things there. Not only are you signaling to the wait list, you're going to have to pay more because of this demand supply tension. You're also signaling to the people that do come, the amount of value they've already gotten is heightened. Now the intensity and the desire when they show up is, wow, I'm invested in what I'm about to watch. So you're almost creating a fevered audience, it feels like.
It does. And when we've done that, when I first walk out on stage, they erupt in applause. Like spontaneous. It's weird. It's spontaneous applause, which almost never happens. But I'll just walk out and like get ready to start. And then I'll just be like clapping and whooping. And it's like, hey, you guys are in a good mood. So it's a strange phenomenon, but it's that buildup that makes people want to, they're really bought in at that point.
So Daniel, I'm going to take you backwards and go in a bit of a different direction. And I'm going to take us back to when we talked about commoditization versus being in demand. And I'm going to tie this to, you have 3 kids, I have 2 kids. And as they grow up, a lot of people will tell kids, you want to focus on in-demand skills. And what's always jumped out to me and what I write about is I say in-demand skills aren't necessarily what you should be focusing on because that's where everybody goes. And the arbitrage drives the in-demand skill, to your point, drives it down to 0 because too many people go there. What you should instead be focusing on as a young person is rare skills. And the way I look at rare skills is I may be an accountant as an example. And I'll work on public speaking. I'll host a podcast. I'll become a writer. And so I have a depth in my accounting as a CFO, but now I've broadened myself and added on to that technical skill or to that skill stack, skills that a normal accountant doesn't have, making it rare. And so that to me tied into when you were talking about not going after these in-demand roles or companies or opportunities and instead trying to build for the rare.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is points to a deep truth. And the deep truth is that it's the demand and supply tension that sets the price. So, for example, there are not many people seeking to buy a really, really old Rolls Royce, right? So there's not a huge market for old Rolls Royces. There's probably only a few thousand people who want to buy one, but there's only a few tens of them available. So, and the people who tend to want them are extremely, cashed up, and they're going to fight with each other. So even like if you said, is it an in-demand, are old Rolls Royces in demand? Like I'm talking 1920s Rolls Royces or something like that. A 1920s Rolls Royce is in demand. So there's not a huge market for it. It's not like there's thousands of people, thousands and thousands of them bought or sold. But is it rare? Yeah, it is. And what we're really looking for is demand and supply tension. So demand and supply tension is like, for example, let's say you're a CFO who previously worked on a series of M&A deals in the boutique craft beer space. And it culminated in a $500 million group of craft beer companies being put together and acquired. And really, there's not that many CFOs who've got the experience with the craft beer industry, and they've been through the whole M&A roll-up space, and they're excited. They understand it, they're excited about it, they're passionate about it. So this is something that is very rare, and there's an in-demand demand and supply tension around that role because very few people have that experience. But you wouldn't say it's an in-demand. There's not like millions of people Googling CFO for craft beer. It's not, you couldn't find the data to back up that that would be a great idea. But there is a demand and supply tension around, I want to find someone who's got the experience of building a $500 million craft beer business.
Let's pivot to a different direction that ties to some of what we've been talking about, and what jumps out at me is even you and I having a conversation and referencing Rich, who we talked about earlier, as someone you've worked with. Now, that immediately jumps out to me as, oh, wow, well, if Daniel worked with Rich and I love Rich, then I love Daniel. And so what I'm talking about there is the fact that people or our audience want social proof. And I think you say they want to see others buy from us. They want to see others value us, and they want to see others recommend us. One of the things we don't necessarily do enough of is use the testimonials or celebrate them. And so that's one of the things you talk about is celebrate your clients, make them the stars of your show, and get famous on their success stories, put them up on the pedestal, and then other people see them, see what you did for them, and now all of a sudden you're creating that demand. Why do we not do so well at that, and how can we do it better?
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy what you're hearing so far and want me to be able to get your favorite guests on this show, please do me a quick favor. Subscribe to the show and leave me a rating. The 30 seconds of your time will mean a ton to me.
So the reason we don't do so well is, and there's two parts to that question. Why do we not do so well, and how do we do it better? So why do we not do it so well is because we were raised in a system that was designed around component labor. And everything in the schooling system is designed to prepare you to be a good piece of component labor that fits into somebody else's machine perfectly. So in the schooling system, you don't want to say, I'm a different type of person. You don't want to say, oh, by the way, I got my friend to do the homework because I identified who's the smartest. Clint was clearly better at me than mathematics, so I got him to do the homework. And wouldn't it be great if I just showcase how well Clint did? So in the schooling system, we have to put the spotlight on our own value, and we have to put our spotlight on the value of our component labor, which is interchangeable, generic, commoditized labor. That's the whole point of the schooling system. So it creates all these ugly habits around how we talk about ourselves, how we present ourselves to the world, things that absolutely in conflict with communicating value, right? So that's why we do it. How do we do it better? So we celebrate the success of our clients. We recognize that we're standing on a mountain of value and we've lost perspective around it. So we have to learn how to recognize and describe the mountain of value that we're already standing on. We can document our case studies. We can capture our case studies. We can get famous on the success of our clients. We can showcase the results that we've had with others and use those as, demonstrations of success. We can recognize that people do not want to buy what others want to sell. They want to buy what others buy. So I don't want to buy a Louis Vuitton handbag because Louis Vuitton really, really, really wants to sell it. I want to buy a Louis Vuitton handbag because lots of other people want to buy it. So we respond to what others are buying, not what others are selling, right? It's irrelevant. As a buyer, it's irrelevant to us to say, oh, this company, guess what? This company really, 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 really wants to sell their coaching package. It's like, okay, who cares, right? Wow, amazing. So what? So that's not what we respond to. But what we do respond to is we go, wow, that coach has 1,300 people who've joined their waiting list. That's insane. What are they doing that's different? Or that coach was the coach of someone who I know who's freaking fussy as anything. This person is one of the highest paid coaches in the world, and they paid this guy to coach them. And it's like, what's going on there? So we respond to what others are buying more than we respond to what others are selling.
You raise a good point on some of that. Even when we were looking at building a home, one of the biggest decision points for me was there was a builder who had built one of my closest friends' homes. And I know he goes through very rigorous thought exercises on hiring people. And I'd seen the finished product. And there was another friend who hadn't done the build yet, who vets more than anyone I'd ever seen. And he'd landed on the same person. So for me, it was really a phone call and a, hey, are you available to come build here? Because you've already been vetted by people I trust.
So imagine this. Imagine you pick up the phone and you talk to this builder and he says, oh, am I available? I will meet you at 3:00 in the morning. I really, 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 really need to sign up some people at the moment. I am in a position where I need to sign you up. I need to make a sale. You go, whoa, hold up, slow down.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah, you just killed it. So here's what happens. 90% of businesses subconsciously communicate self-intent, self-interest. And they're communicating, I want to sell something. They're telling the market, hey, by the way, I've got stuff available. I want to sell it. And the best brands say, I'm sorry, I haven't got available. I'm not available to you. You're not on the waiting list. You, unfortunately, you're late to the party. There are others ahead of you in line. And I'm flattered by the fact you'd like to work with me. But just know, I've got other things. I've got other people and other people to see. And people respond to that. They respond to what people want to buy, not when people want to sell.
And so the example you give of that is you have a coach that's recommended to you. You dial them up or email, and you get a reply back that says, hey, great, thanks for reaching out. I'm gone for the next X number of weeks. Can you reach out to me when I'm back? So for some of us, we instinctively think, well, shit, that would really throw me off. Like I'd be a no. You actually point out it has the opposite impact, and it even had a bit of the opposite impact for you. Can you chat a bit about that?
Yeah, the first serious coach I employed when I was 23 was $5,000 a month. And at the time, that was a lot of money for a coach. That was serious money. And I'd seen a friend of mine, a guy called Adam, who had gone through really serious growth and was building a very valuable business. And he'd gone from super stressed out to playing golf 3 days a week and doing a property development. And I said, Adam, what the hell? Like, how? We're in a young entrepreneurs group together. We're all under 30. I said, how have you done this? Like, this is epic. He goes, I got this coach. This coach is great. And he's been a great coach for us. And he's helped me get the company into that position. And I've gone, can I get his number? Like, can I find out? So yeah, then the guy says, look, I'm away on holiday. I just don't talk to customers or potential customers. I don't even talk to my paying customers when I'm on holiday. Ball's in your court. You call me and say, I'll be back on this date. You call me. I'm not going to chase up with you. And I'm like, whoa, okay. Here I am thinking about spending $60,000 a year with you. And you're telling me ball's in my court. You're not going to take down my number. You're not going to follow up with me. Like, because I said, can I give you my number? Can you call me when you're back? And he goes, no, ball's in your court. You call me. You've got my number. I'm not going to chase you. You chase me. And he was just so brutal about that. And then when I signed up, he said, first thing, before we even discuss anything else, I need to tell you my rules. I've got rules that, for me being a coach, the reason I'm a coach is because I've chosen a particular lifestyle, and that lifestyle comes first. So here's my rules for being a coach, for me being your coach. And it was basically, he dictated a whole bunch of rules around, I'm going to tell you in advance when my holidays are. You're not going to call. I don't care if your business is burning to the ground. If I'm on holiday, I'm not available for you. I'm not going to do an emergency session. Under no circumstances am I going to ruin my holiday for you. And like, it was those kind of rules. And he said, if you're happy to proceed on that basis, then we can talk about everything else. But you need to know those are my rules. And there was like 4 or 5 of those kind of rules. And oh man, did I want this guy as my coach so bad?
Well, if we think about it, having rules, having boundaries, having your principles, and stating them up front. If you want to work with me, here's 4 or 5 things you need to know. Here's me, here's you. I'm only working with you if you're signaling right there. You're signaling a bit of that demand supply tension, because you're saying, I don't need you. Like, meet my parameters or I'll go get the next person who does.
Totally that. Here's the thing. I will say this. you can't really fake with or without you energy, right? So what he was displaying was this with or without you energy, which is basically, I'm going to be busy with or without you. I'm going to be full with or without you. I'm going to have clients with or without you. I don't need you to have a full diary. So that is something I call with or without you energy. Yeah, with or without you energy. Problem is you actually, I don't think you can fake it long term, or you'd have to be a proper psychopath to be able to fake it long term, or a Hollywood actress or actor or something like that. So there is something magic that happens when it's genuine, when it's real, when you really do have with or without you energy. Like, so when you genuinely have a waiting list, you're not worried. If you see someone who's got genuinely a lot of people who want to go on a date with them, and there's just lots of people in their DMs, and, you know, they just have a swagger. They just have a certain swagger of like, I'm not chasing anyone. I genuinely don't care. It's not fake. It's not artificial. You know, we can go on a date or not. It's fine. My diary is full with or without you, right? So that's that kind of genuine swagger that comes up when you've got an abundance of options. And the trick is not to try and fake it. The trick is to get yourself in that position.
Yes. Which is everything we're talking about. You want to manufacture your way into a position where you have with or without you energy, not faking with or without you energy. Because the other side of the equation, there's the guy or the gal who everybody wants to date and they have that energy. The other side of the equation is, I need you, the needy person, and no one wants to grab the needy person and go to the bar.
And it's so weird because I've seen guys who are 6 foot, handsome, lean, good jobs, good income, but they have needy energy and they repel. They are literally everything that a woman would say she wants on a checklist. And they just repel people because they've got needy energy. They just have this needy energy. They might be able to have an initial conversation, but it goes downhill so fast. And I've seen people who are the opposite, where they're not traditionally good looking. There are people who look better on paper, but they've just got the swagger and they've got no neediness. And suddenly they've got plenty of people who go, gee, it would be great to go out with you. Like, it would be so cool to go on a date with you. You'd be an interesting person. And it's like, yeah, take a number and get in line. Everyone wants to go on a date with me. Like, you know, it's like, whatever.
And well, it's that right there. I mean, could you ever just have that energy that says, well, maybe, like, send me a message. I'll get back to you someday, potentially. Like, there's just like a level of confidence that you have to get to that few people have. And, you know, skip obviously the dating part, but if you want to be an exclusive, if you want to be a successful coach, you have to have, or a business owner, you have to have that energy with your potential coaching clients. You have to have that energy with your potential customers. Even if you want to hire the right people, you don't want to come across when you're trying to build, and we'll talk about hiring later, but you don't want to come across to a potential candidate super needy. You want to come across as, hey, 50 people want this job. Like, we like you. We want you. Let's do this.
But there's 49 others. Yeah. Let's do it. But yeah. And the cool thing about with or without you energy is often you don't even have to say anything. It's a nonverbal communication that just underpins everything else. So this is one of the key points with signal collection versus before sales. I've found that with or without you energy kicks in at around 4-1. So when you want to take on one coaching client and you've got 4 people, if you know that you can only take on 10 coaching clients and you've got 40 people who have signaled interest, you've now got something. You've got a natural swagger that starts to build.
And that resonates big time, because if we go back to the last course that we launched horribly, so many mistakes, so many lessons, Daniel, thank you. As we went, okay, we've got 25 people. You could see the 3 of us thinking, oh my God, we're not total failures. People want to learn from us. Then you're at 40 and all of a sudden it's, hey guys, discounts, like this was the discount. That was last week. This week, we'll give you this code. The following week, we're at 50 people. Hey guys, code's dropped again. Here's the new price. And every week, just our energy in the main way we sold, like we've been talking about it, We're on a platform called Maven, and they've reached out and said, hey guys, like we haven't seen many cohorts in round one do the sales you guys are doing. Like, is it all affiliates? What have you been doing? And it was really using social audio media rooms. And it was talking about our experience and the experience of people who've worked with us. And then saying, and we'll talk about this with ecosystems because this actually ties in as I think about it, giving away 90% of what we know in those spaces. And then just saying, hey, if you want more of what you just got, here's the code. Here's the website. Jump on in. We've already got 80 people in there. So if you want to be one of the few to join us, we think we'll be at 100 when we're done. And that's a lesson in a mistake, Daniel, is not saying we think we'll be at 100. It's we're capped at 100. There's only 20 spots left.
We're capped at 100. And also, even better would be, we're launching this. It will be capped at 100. We're at the phase at the moment where we're just seeking some interest. You don't have to pay any money. What I'd like you to do is just fill in an application, and in the application, you tell us what are you trying to get out of it so that we can assess whether it's a good fit. We'll get back to you. If we think it's a good fit, we'll get back to you, but that could be 2 or 3 weeks from now. Now, because think about it like this, if someone's going to part with money, they have to feel 100% sure or 95% sure. And then you're going to have to do a discount or a guarantee to make up the shortfall. If someone's 10 or 15% sure that they'd like to do something, they'll fill in a form, right? They'll do an easy signal of interest that takes a minute. They'll do that. And then you can begin the process of closing the gap. So let's say those audio rooms that you were in, let's say there were like 100 people listening, 200 people listening. And every time you were in front of 100 or 200 people, there were 3 people who signed up with credit card details and booked a slot. I would hazard a guess to say that there was another 15 to 20 who were like, I'm not ready to part with cash right now. I'm not ready to pay you with my credit card. But oh boy, I would fill in some detail to get some additional information about what's happening and like who's it for and like all of that. Like I'm interested. So what happens is if you did let's say you did the exact same number of audio rooms that you did, but there was no ability to buy. It was just you fill in the application and then we'll let you know if a spot becomes available. You would probably get up to say 400, 500 people who filled in that application. Now you go back to everyone and you say, we've got 500 people who filled in the application. We're taking only 100. We're taking people, what we're looking for is business owners that are already north of $500,000. So we've immediately eradicated everyone who's less than $500,000 of revenue. It will only be for business owners that are $500,000 plus. And we also we identified that some of you are struggling with the operations and finance, and some of you are struggling with sales and marketing. So we're just making this very operations and finance focused. So we've immediately eradicated everyone who's sales and marketing. And now we're giving first dibs to all of you. That was you. You said that was you're north of $500,000 and your issue is operational. We'd love to give you an access to a spot before we open up to the wider group. You've got 48 hours to book your spot. What would have probably happened is you'd fill all 100 spots at full price, no discount.
Yeah, and that's what's jumping out at me is we didn't realize the power of this. So there's a waitlist feature. There was a certain number of people on the waitlist. I don't think our email campaigns were strong. So there's room to work on there. And the other thing, we hadn't done any of the spaces. We didn't realize the power of the spaces until we'd flipped from waitlist to launch. And by then it was too late. So next time, to your point, if it's a 2-month campaign leading up to it, the first month is spaces.
Maybe even 6 weeks.
With only a wait list, maybe even 6 weeks. And then at the end of that 6 weeks, you're over 1,000 and you're saying, hey guys, there's 100 spots. There's 1,000 people signed up. And you take them through that and you make it very personal and go much closer to full docket at full price.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to do any discount. If you've got that demand and supply tension, you can be full price. And that's just how it is. That's the price. And if you are that oversubscribed, great.
Yeah, and pick a number that gets you the value you want.
Exactly. And that you can deliver delight. You want to make sure you deliver delight. It's got to be amazing for the price. If you charge $1,000, it's got to be worth $5,000 or $10,000 minimum. It's got to be genuinely a great. I've got to walk away feeling that was really exceptional, that it was really, really great. So if you can only do that with 92 people, then take on 92 people. But if you Can't really do that once you get to 108 people. Just really stick at 92 people because that's the number you can actually look after. So it's about figuring out how many people can I genuinely look after and genuinely delight. And then sell the waitlist like you're selling the program. Sell the waitlist like you're selling the product. So ferociously sell the waitlist. I'll give you another example. I raised money for my tech company. And this was a couple of years ago during the pandemic and all that sort of stuff. So first thing I did is I scheduled 4 angel investor boardroom meetings, virtual angel investor boardroom meetings with about 8 to 12 angel investors per boardroom. And I went out to the angel network and I said, so I went out to all the people who I thought would make great angels and different networks. I said, we're doing angel investor presentations. There's 4 time slots available. If you'd like to join, here's the time slots. So they could book in and basically I said, we're going to take you through our numbers and our strategy and our trends that we've noticed. There's no obligation. Just come along and have a look at what we're presenting. So in 1 week, we had 4 presentations, and I think there was 8 to 12 people per presentation. At the end of the presentation, I said, we're not taking on investment just yet. What I would like is if you're interested in being an angel investor, I'd like you to just fill in a registration of interest. What sort of money would you be interested in investing? What do you bring to the table beyond the money? Is there any additional contacts or anything that you would say is a added value beyond the cash? And then we're just going to have a look and see who's there by the end of this week. We'll get back to you guys next week. So we wanted to raise, whatever we wanted to raise, call it $500,000 or $1 million, right? We had double to triple that of expressions of interest by the end of the week. So then we go back and we say, look, we've got twice as much money as we need and we're not going to take it. We are only going to take this round 1. We're not going to dilute beyond that. I noticed that you've got here that you can make a corporate introduction to this big bank. Is that genuine? What are your thoughts on that? Like can I know a little bit more about that? Oh yeah, well I used to work there and I've got a direct access to this department and blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So if we bring you on, could we count on you for that? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Well, you put down that you're interested in 30,000. I want to bring in enough angel investors pushing this hard. Would you be able to come in at 20,000 so that I can bring in some additional angels who've got strategic benefit? Would you bring your number down? Yeah, okay, I'll bring my number down to 20. Okay, great. I'll take you in at 20 grand. So what happened in that situation is for the first time ever, angels had been told, no, you can't have the full allocation. And they'd also been told, like, are you committed to doing this additional thing beyond the money? And we documented that. We put it on heads of terms and all that sort of stuff. And basically, we ended up with people fighting to get into the angel round and being told that they had to put in less than they had hoped.
Put in less than they hoped, provide more than they normally would, and you're the double beneficiary of all of it.
Yeah, and they loved it. They loved it. They've all described this as the best angel investment they've made and the best angel experience they've had because we have amazing angel update events with them. We keep them in the loop with data. We ask them for specific things. We actually say, so like every 3 months, we're doing an angel investor update and we're saying we're treating them as a community of supporters. We're never keeping them in the dark. All the numbers are transparent. The dashboards come out regularly. And then we say, here's what I need from you this month. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Can you please let me know who can help me with these things? And because we're treating them so well and because they feel so privileged to be part of this journey, they're all looking for ways to help. They want this to be a thing. And the funny thing is, that's actually why people become angel investors in the first place. They want to be part of the startup growth. They don't want to write a check and then be told to sit in a dark room and wait for the exit. They want to be part of the journey. So we're involving them and because they had to jump through hoops to get in, they love being part of it and they love helping when possible. So it set it up in the right direction.
I love that. So a last direction on the book that I'd like to talk to you about is the idea of ecosystems. And one of the things you say there that I found was powerful was it's the ecosystem as a whole that creates the value, not any one product, service, system, or person. And you can't expect to be highly rewarded for doing a good job. Rather, you can expect to be rewarded when you've built a high-performing ecosystem that delivers value in a multitude of ways. So where do you see individuals, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs or even companies, where do you see them screw that up? And what does good look like?
Let's go really great, especially in the coaching space. If you take someone like Eric Ries or Start With Why Simon Sinek, part of the ecosystem is a best-selling book, a ton of content on YouTube, interesting reports and data that gets put out once, twice a year, speaking at TED, speaking at Google, making those things available, having online assessments that people can take, having certified coaches who know the methodology but are not the guru, and then having ultimately the ability to work with the guru if you can afford it. So that would be an example of ecosystems at the highest level. Take Rich Litvin, right? So Rich has got a couple of great books and they sell well. He's got some online assessments and they're great. He's got 4PC, which is a group program. He's got these salons that he runs 2 or 3 times a year, which are like 100 to 200 people. And he's got his one-to-one coaching. So it's that ecosystem. And sure enough, people attend a salon, which is the 100 to 200 person event. And then they go on and do 4PC. And someone goes off and does 4PC. And then they say, actually, I want to work with you. I want to bring you into my company and do one-to-one. And someone starts and says, I want to do one-to-one. And now I've finished that engagement. I want to do 4PC. I want to join the waiting list for that. And, it's been a couple of years. I want to come back to a salon. So people bounce around the ecosystem. And if you start to dismantle it, it ceases to be profitable. It all comes crumbling down. So if you said, Simon Sinek said, actually, I'm so sick of the speaking and I'm so sick of the books and I'm so sick of all of that stuff. I just purely and simply want to cut myself off from all of that and just simply be a coach. It's going to spiral down, right? Because it's the ecosystem that's producing ultimately the result. Here's the funny thing with me. I'm not a coach, but I do have coaching clients. And I typically, at any given time, I might have 3 or 4 coaching clients who I take on. I'm running a group of companies. I've got 8 companies and I'm running my companies and I'm an entrepreneur and that's my main thing. The funny thing is the 3 or 4 coaching clients that I have per year that come perfect to home run fits, they bubble up out of the overall ecosystem. Like someone might say to me, Daniel, how did you get that amazing celebrity client? And I go, well, someone handed them a copy of my book and then they got in touch through Twitter and then they couldn't meet straight away. So I sent them the assessment that I do. And then they checked me out online and they saw that I'm building a tech company and an accelerator business and I bought and sold, 8 companies. And it's like, then they knew. And then they also heard that I'd worked with that other celebrity chef. Okay, cool. So it's like it bubbles up out of the ecosystem. If I try and kill everything and just say, I just want high paid coaching, that's all I want. It's going to be hard for me to get that without dedicating like serious energy around that particular project. But if I just simply trust the ecosystem, stuff bubbles up out of the ecosystem.
And so part of the ecosystem that I often see, whether it's individuals or companies miss, is the power of social media. And if it's a company, taking some of your key, whether it's ownership, key leadership, executives, profiling them, it's much harder to build the brand of a business than it is to build a brand of the people and then have them be featured in the business as a way to sell. And then on those platforms, give away 90% of the value. Give, or as Gary Vaynerchuk, I think it's jab, 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 right hook. And so why do people have such a hard time committing to putting themselves out there and giving away information that, realistically, 90% of what we think is our proprietary juice.
We forgot that we swiped it.
Yeah. We all read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And every time I quote it, people think I'm quoting Atomic Habits. It's like, no, James Clear read 7 Habits and so did I. So, sorry, James. So why do people just want to clam it up and be their own? And why do so many of them still ignore social media platforms today? Am I wrong on this?
Well, a lot of people don't want to give away ideas because they think ideas are valuable. And, ideas are just not valuable anymore. We can access any number of ideas at the touch of a button. You can download the plans for a stealth bomber. You can, if you want to download the code for, Google's algorithm, I'm sure it's sitting there somewhere. Like everything that you might, Warren Buffett's entire investment strategy is like out there for £10. I recently read a book called Principles with Ray Dalio, the multi-billionaire hedge fund guy. And it's like the guy has put everything he's learned from his whole life into one book, and you can buy it for $20. So like the ideas are not particularly valuable. What's difficult and what is valuable is implementation and actually doing something together, and actually transformation is valuable. Getting a result is valuable. So sharing the idea is actually what makes people trust and what makes them engage. And then working with them on transformation. Now, one of the reasons people don't want that to be true is because transformation's hard, right? It's like, wouldn't it be great if you could have a coaching client and you go to the gym more often, and they go, oh, whoa, that's an amazing idea. I should go to the gym more often. Yeah. And make more sales. Oh, wow. Yeah, I should make more sales. That's awesome coaching. Thanks, bro. So like transformation's hard, and the idea doesn't actually do a lot of the heavy lifting. The idea is nice, but it doesn't, talk doesn't cook rice, as they say in China. So there's coaches who do transformation, and they get paid a ton of money because with the coach, you get a different result than without the coach. If the coach is involved, the result is going to be vastly different. If the coach is not involved, you're going to get a shitty result. So the coach is doing something that adds up to transformation. The reason people don't put themselves out there is they think it's about them, right? The goal is not to be in the spotlight. It is to become a spotlight. Someone who's chasing the spotlight is saying, look at me, look how awesome I am. Check me out. Look at this avocado I had on breakfast today. Look at this gym routine I just completed. Look at me. I'm this amazing person. I'm standing in front of a Ferrari today, right? So that is like chasing the spotlight. It's narcissistic and it's disgusting. People hate it. And people don't want to be a narcissist either. Like most humans don't want to actually be that guy. But when you say, my job is not to chase the spotlight, but to become a spotlight, then it's like, oh, really all I'm doing here is I'm shining the light on this thing that I want you to know more about. I'm showing you stories that will benefit you. I'm trying to add value to your life. And I'm detached from whether that results in a client or not. I want to shine the spotlight on this particular thing. I want people to know how this works. And that is incredibly compelling. When you become a spotlight, people show up to see what you're spotlighting today. When you're chasing the spotlight, people want to take it off you. They're like, ugh, yeah, right? So what people are lacking is the distinction between chasing the spotlight and becoming the spotlight, and how to do the right thing versus the wrong thing. So hence they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. They say, well, I'm not going to be a narcissist, and I'm not going to put myself out there, and I'm not going to share my ideas. It's like, whoa, hold up. Those ideas, you've tangled up a few ideas that are actually different, and we need to untangle those ideas and throw the narcissism away, but retain the value sharing process. And we need to share ideas freely and then charge for the implementation and transformation.
And when we say being the spotlight versus chasing the spotlight, being the spotlight, we're sharing our ideas, we're sharing ways for people to grow, we're giving value. And it's not about us, it's about the audience and helping them.
Yeah, so like let's say you're a CFO and you've previously worked in craft beer. And what you want to do is you want to talk through, here's what I've learned from doing 17 M&A deals in this space. And here's what we found were the biggest drivers of valuation. And when we sold to this big company, this is what they were most concerned about. And people are like, whoa, that's really interesting. I didn't know about that information. How can I get you on my team? How can you help my craft beer company to become worth 100 million? That's awesome, right? So it's like, by spotlighting the story, by spotlighting the examples, by putting some good value in the spotlight, now people are like, how can we work together? How do I do stuff? That's the difference.
Okay, last question for you, Daniel, and then hopefully you have time for our final four, is this statement I found very interesting. You are who Google says you are. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there's going to be a life-changing deal that comes your way, right? Someone's going to buy your company. Someone's going to want to partner with you. There's a celebrity who's going to get involved in your business, and they're going to blow your business up because they've already got 3 million followers. Those things are going to happen in your life if you're lucky, but they will be preceded by a Google search. So the person who's going to do that deal with you is going to Google you, and they're going to go, oh, I've done deals in the past with people who weren't who they said they were. I'm just going to Google them and see what happens. And when they Google you, one of three things is going to happen. You're either going to come up as exactly who you say you are, right? So it's going to look great. This person's a key person of influence. This person has been sharing content for years. This person has got a following of people who adore them. And it's like, of course I want to do a deal with this person. I want to invest. I want to buy. I want to endorse. Or it's going to come up crickets. Nothing. Like there's nothing there. There's a LinkedIn profile and a Twitter profile. And, you go to the Twitter profile and there's 128 followers and we're discussing a cold chicken sandwich on British Airways flight. And it's like, okay, whatever. And crickets. Okay, cool. You've got a LinkedIn profile. Whatever. Okay, you're a nobody. You're a worker bee. You're component labor. Okay, maybe I'm going to start treating you like component labor. I'm not going to do a deal with you. I'm going to leverage you. And then there's negative stuff. Could be genuinely negative, as in like you've got something in your past that went badly and it's all over the internet, in which case there's no deal happening. Or it could just be unfortunate. Like there's a serial killer in Florida with the same name and it's like, oh God, that's a bit icky. And now deal's not happening either, and no fault of your own. So ultimately, when we fast forward 10, 20 years into the future and life worked out well, life really worked out well. And it's like, how did life work out well? It worked out because a series of good deals happened. I had some great deals, some agreements happened, some people I got involved with, some funding I got. All of those good deals happened. How did those deals happen? Well, when they Googled me, good stuff came up and they went ahead and did the deal, right? That's how it happened. So this is a really important component. It's a gateway. If you can't pass that test, as far as people are concerned, you are who Google says you are. If I Google you and nothing comes up, you're not interesting. So if you look like a key person of influence, you are a key person of influence, we're doing a deal.
And so one of the things we need to do is, a general idea that I talk about a lot of people is radical responsibility and ownership. And so our Google profile is one of those things we should take ownership of, and we should make sure that A, we're living a life that drives it, and B, we're interacting with the online environment in a way that produces a search result that we want.
Yeah. It's not hard. Like everyone listening here, every single person listening here has had something interesting. I'll give you a stupid example. If I went back right to the beginning of my career and I said, let's say I got together with someone and we did a video intro, what did you learn from McDonald's? Well, day one, I learned how to sneeze. And here's the sneezing system that McDonald's, and here's why they teach a sneezing system at McDonald's. That's interesting piece of content. If I said, what did I learn from working at one of the top end bars and the top restaurants after McDonald's? What was that experience like, going from McDonald's to an exclusive bar and restaurant? And what were the differences? That would be interesting content. I could have done both of those pieces of content at 18. At 20, I could do what's it like first year working for a startup that goes from 0 to 60 people. So every single person listening here, in the last couple of years, you've had some experiences that you probably just simply take for granted, like being taught how to sneeze at McDonald's. And, you're sitting there going, well, that's not very interesting. And it's like, it could be. It could actually be if we video it and put it online. And if we could also do commentary about things that are happening. I could do a video about my thoughts, Cybertruck and how he launched Cybertruck, all of that stuff. So we don't need a lot. We just need a little bit of stuff that points to a truth. And the truth is, what do you want people to know about you? If you want to say that you're good at systemizing things, coming in and talking about the system for sneezing points to that truth, that you're interested in systemizing things. So it's about looking at it through the lens, having radical empathy for someone who doesn't know you, and giving them a trail of breadcrumbs that they can follow that helps them to understand who you are and what you're all about.
And one of the things I often use as a metaphor or an example with that, Daniel, is if you think about the ladder of life or the ladder of experience, the top of the ladder could be Z. And people think they need to be at Z before they can teach or before they can share on social media. But even if you're on step B, there's people on step A. There's always someone behind you who can learn, grow, benefit from what you've done. And you gave excellent examples of that. So for people out there, never be afraid to start and put yourself out there. There are always people behind you who can learn from you. So Daniel, do you have a couple quick minutes for a final four question?
Let's smash it out. Let's do it.
Okay. What's been one of the most influential books on your life that you've read?
First thing I'll say is the book that changes your life the most is not one you read, it's one you write. And I would encourage people to write a book. Because, look, you can read a lot of books and books are great and it's a great habit to be in. But ultimately, if you really want to change your life, write a book. That's a great milestone to have as a goal. If you've got time to read, write a chapter, see what comes out, and see if you can get 3 chapters into writing your own book. So I'm going to flip that question around and say, if you've got time to read, have a go at writing. The book that will categorically change your life the most is one you write, not one you read.
Powerful, well said. And then also contrast it. If it is one you've read, it's not the one you've read, it's the one you've actually acted on. So what are you reading right now? What's on your shelf?
What am I reading? At the moment, I've been reading a meditation book. Understanding so strength in stillness has been a good one. And it's actually a really great daily practice. I've also...
Is that Ryan Holiday's?
No, it's similar. It's because he wrote Stillness is the Key. And
yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so it's a similar situation. Ready, Fire, Aim. I've been reading that. And 3 Simple Steps and The Coaching Habit are the ones that are on the go at the moment. And Tony Fadell, Build, so all into that. And then what was the one I finished a little while ago was Energize, Simon Alexander Ong, which was really good. Everything comes back to your energy for it, which was really cool. Simple idea, everything requires your energy. So how do you have more of that? Energize, yeah.
So what's one thing you've spent less than $1,000 on in the last year that Daniel thinks, wow, I really wish I'd bought that earlier?
A really nice journal and a really nice pen. So like I personally like, there's a Mont Blanc journal that is about £50, so probably $100, 80 or $100. And there's a Mont Blanc pen that's probably about $500. There's something about having a really nice pen and a really nice journal that just kind of calls you to journal before bed and throughout the day. And it just, something about it feels important and it feels like a ritual, or, it feels nice to journal with a nice pen in a nice journal. So I would encourage everyone, in a world of digital and screens, there's something very therapeutic about having a journal with a nice pen.
And when we want to create habits, using rituals is a powerful way to do it. So having that nice journal, having that nice pen, and you used the word, you said it creates a ritual, you're more likely to journal than I am. I've got my work pen and my normal day journal. There's no ritual there. So that's a powerful answer to go with it. And so this show is about growth. And so what I like to ask people as the final question is, what is one mindset shift, habit that you've adopted in your life that's had the greatest overall impact for you?
The mindset shift is, at the essence of Stoicism, is the idea of, can I control this? Is this something I can impact, or is this not something I can impact? And the classic example, the most frequent example, is watching the news. So when you watch the news, you're engaging in something that's going to use up your emotional energy that you have absolutely no control over. Most of the time, whatever's on the news has already happened. Most of the time, it's way too big for you to have any influence over whatsoever. And most of the time, you're not going to have any influence over it. You're not going to write a letter to your MP. You're not going to write a letter to the CEO of that company. You're just going to be outraged, and you're going to engage in something that's just, you have no control over it. So the mindset shift is disengage from stuff you don't control. Disengage from TikTok. You have no control over what content's coming on. Every time you swipe up, you've got no control as to what they put in your head. Same with all these other algorithmic things, right? So if you can't control it, disengage. It's not yours. Don't do it. So a mindset shift is, I don't engage with content that that is not related to something I can control. And I don't engage with, I wish I didn't engage with content I can't control. I'm trying to be better disciplined with that. But I've noticed about myself that it's very easy for me to start scrolling on YouTube shorts, and suddenly I'm out of control as to what I'm brainwashing myself with. YouTube's in the driver's seat. So this is the key idea. No news, no algorithmic decision-making around content that I'm consuming, right? It's conscious consumption of content relating to something I can control.
Conscious consumption of content and focused on control. Love it. Great answer. And is there anything we didn't cover that you want to make sure the listeners get?
Can I be a little self-interested here? So we created this company called ScoreApp, and it's online quizzes and assessments. In 2016, I launched an online assessment, and it brought in 90,000 warm leads and £15 million worth of sales, $20 million. And essentially, I went from running really labor-intensive events all the time to just having a steady stream of people filling in the online quiz and taking the self-assessment. And then that just got allocated to our sales team, and we made a bunch of sales, and it was very instrumental in having a more workable business, having more work-life balance. I couldn't be traveling around the world with 3 young kids doing events. The online assessment works anywhere in the world. So we packaged this up into ScoreApp, making it super easy for people to build their own online assessment. I think anyone who's a coach, consultant, advisor would be really wise to have an online assessment that is bespoke to them, that is a piece of proprietary content that they've got. So based upon your experience, based on your background, you come up with 10, 15, 20 questions that are thoughtful questions that you can ask people. You create a little landing page. People take the assessment, they then get a score, and then you discuss that score with them. And it's a really powerful coaching. It's a really, really powerful way to win coaching clients and to actually kick off the coaching experience with people, and to manage the client and be able to showcase the transformation. We took it on day 1, and then 3 months later, and you went from a 17% to a 74%. So ScoreApp is the technology to use to do that. And it does a beautiful landing page, a questionnaire with a point scoring system, and dynamic content that displays based on how someone scores. And then it gives you all the data and the insights on the back end, so you can use that data and use those insights to make more sales and improve your marketing. So one thing we didn't talk about at all is like that whole system, that ScoreApp system, but it's a really good system for your listeners, and they can do a free trial and all the stuff you'd expect.
Yeah, and data and there's so much that we didn't get to. Buy the book, oversubscribed, look at the ScoreApp. There's so much you can do. Where else can they find you, Daniel?
All the socials, Insta and LinkedIn and all that. Connect, reach out, and let me know that you heard me through this podcast, which would be great. There's actually 4 books in the Entrepreneur Journey series. So there's Entrepreneur Revolution, Key Person of Influence, Oversubscribed, and 24 Assets. So there's 4 books in that series. And then there's a book for parents, How to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids, that I co-authored. So and then there's the latest book, Scorecard Marketing, which is about that how we set up an online assessment and how we did that. So basically, you don't need to stay in touch with me. All the ideas are in the books.
All right. We'll get links to everything on the show notes. And thank you so much for joining me today. I learned a lot when I read the book. I learned a lot in our conversation. Thoughts are swirling in my head on the next campaign that I'll be launching. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Clint. Thanks for having me.
If you like the podcast, you'll love our new newsletter, The Growth Guide. Every Thursday, straight to your inbox, with the goal to help you be better, achieve more, and become financially free. Check it out at our website, thegrowth.guide. Subscribe and learn more.